Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture, Mighty Thor Monday. We've gotten to Thor number 365. We are within the Thunder Frog saga. This is, by the way, March 1986. So again, we're getting really close to where I started actually collecting superhero comics. This issue, Thor leaps into a new secret identity. Wait until you see it. Let's open this sucker up. This one is Walter Simonson, art and story. John Workman, lettering. Max Shield, colors. Ralph Macchio, editing. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. Shooter years were pretty darn good years. Christmas poster bonanza, which tells you this book probably came out, therefore, around December of 1985. Cover date is always in advance by a few months. So just so you know. Okay. When we last left Thor, he's in the form of a frog. He was leaping towards the Piper, who has a flute, maybe a magic flute, that can control animals. He uses it to control these alligators that are in these sewers or in these tunnels under Central Park. So he knows obviously something is very special about this frog. He's huge. He was dragging these dead rats. Well, even though as a frog he's being controlled by the flute, he is Thor. And he therefore is able to, do his leaps in such a way as to avoid the alligators. And he says, you know what? I must take the initiative as a true frog never could. So he jumps right into the face of the Piper. Now, again, he's not as strong as Thor. We're not talking like lifting 100 tons over his head, but he's very strong for a frog. So it kind of knocks the guy for a loop. He steals this flute. Now the guy without the flute cannot control the alligators. He's fleeing from them. Thor, not using the flute to do this, but Thor just using the rats and himself, lures the alligators out of the tunnels. Meanwhile, the rats are dragging these bags of rat poison to poison Central Park. That will kill the tadpoles. That will wipe out the frogs. Ultimately, that is their plan. But the frogs ain't doing nothing here. They are ready for them, and so they attack. And we get this battle between the frogs and the rats. The frogs are coming in from two different sides, some from the South Gatehouse, some from nearer the reservoir. Meanwhile, in Asgard, Thor has appeared at the All Thing. Loki's a little surprised since he saw him get turned into a frog, and he doesn't understand it. And he needs time to think. Now, of course, Thor has his face covered because of the wounds that he took when he stormed Hell. But Loki says, why don't we sort of, reconvene a week from now? So Thor will have more time to heal his wounds. The law speaker says, sure, that sounds good. And they do so. And then Thor, speaking with Heimdall, speaking with the Warriors 3, Loki knows something is up. So he's going to follow them. Apparently Thor and Heimdall are heading to Heimdall's palace on the edge of town. So he follows along in the form of a fly. And he does manage to get into Heimdall's palace. But then Heimdall sets his sword there, which will hum if any creature, no matter how small, moves within the house. So he'll know that he's being maybe spied upon. So Loki has to sit still for a moment while those two go into Heimdall's chambers to talk. All right, back in Central Park. The war is going on, but then the frogs start fleeing, and the rats are like, we got them now. We'll destroy them all on the lawn. They follow. And then who appears in the bushes but the alligators? It's the alligators. Thor has led them to go after the rats, and they do go after the rats. Thor looks on like a general, having just won this great victory. And then the Piper shows up, wants to get his flute back, takes a swipe at Thor. Thor manages to avoid it. But I kind of like this. Oh, you know what? Does he say it here? No. Okay, we'll get back to the Piper here in just a moment. Okay, Loki starts to get some ideas. So he uses a spell of silence, takes his normal form, and he checks out Mjolnir. Sure enough, he's capable of lifting it. So he knows it's not the real hammer. And he casts a very subtle spell on it. And at that point, he turns back into the fly. And we see Heimdall leave his chambers with Hurricane. Now, Hurricane is like an exact duplicate of Thor, except for his hair color. It was him. He was the one masquerading as Thor. Heimdall has a bad feeling, but he can't detect anybody, so he kind of lets it go. So, Heimdall is maneuvering against Loki. He's kind of one of the last gods left in Asgard to do this. I mean, Frigga's there, but she's a little more, she's not so active. Sif and Beta Ray Bill are there. Of course, the Warriors 3. But they're the ones opposing Loki at the moment. Balder is in Jotunheim in the Balder the Brave miniseries. Thor is, of course, in Central Park. So the Piper has a little talk with him. And he says, look, ultimately, he goes, I'm actually more on the side of the frogs than the rats. He mentions he lives in those tunnels with the Morlocks. And so he says, okay, he starts piping, and you could see that he leads the alligators and the rats away. So I've talked about how we got a lot of fairy tale and folklore going on through here. Thor getting turned into a frog, very fairy tale. Now we essentially have the Pied Piper of Hamelin as well. So bringing fairy tales and folklore into modern New York, which is kind of what Thor did, in the first place. And it's one of the most fun and interesting things, I think, about the Thor series overall. Okay, so Thor then is going to head back to the princess who wishes to marry him so he can be king of the frogs. He's like, well, I can't do that. I'm a wayfarer. I've got to move on. But, there are others here who can rule wisely beside you. And even Bug-Eye is who seemed like he was angling for the job. He even declares, Thor must be king. He is the best. I can't be king. You're going to have to pick somebody else. But if you trust them, they will rule wisely with you. Okay. It's just, you got to love this kind of stuff. So Thor heads off. Puddle Gulp then kind of, catches up to him. They have a little talk. Turns out Puddle Gulp was once a human as well. He was turned into a frog by, someone he thought was just a fortune teller in the village. And she turned out to be much more, And what we do know, there's a rather powerful sorcerer who does live in Greenwich Village. I don't know that he had anything to do with it, but maybe somebody he knows did. And he said, though, the thing is, I liked it. I actually liked being a frog. I didn't want to go back. He goes, the only thing I really miss is football. So very interesting. And Thor says, I may come back one day in a different form. He says this to the other frogs. You may not recognize me, but know that I will know you. And this is where Puddle Gulp sort of is like, yeah, I kind of had a feeling you were who you were. And that's when he reveals he was really a human being. Well, Thor heads back to his goats, who now can communicate with him. And you see him, so how long are we going to wait for the frog? As long as necessary. What does he say there? Oh, long as necessary. Sooner or later, he will seek us out. And so then they see him. He's like, Lord Thor. And he's like, you recognize me? Yeah, we know Thor, no matter what shape he's in. Well, he doesn't know exactly what to do, but he knows he has to get out of there. He has to get back to Asgard. They're the only ones who are going to be able to deal with this problem. And I don't know if it's Tooth Grinder or Tooth Gnasher. One of them says, well, why don't you lift Mjolnir? Maybe that's the secret. He's like, it's a good idea. So now he has to try to lift the hammer. Now that means at a minimum, he's got to move it. Now he's worthy. He can do that, but it's extraordinarily heavy. And he is, even though he's a super frog, he's still a frog. Well, unfortunately for him, while he's doing that, the rats who escaped, they show up. And they're gonna deal with him once and for all. And we get some really nice stuff. I love it because he's in the form of a frog saying this thing. He had told the frogs, that faith can move mountains. And so now he's kind of yelling at himself, you spoke glibly of the faith that moves mountains when there were no mountains to be moved. Where now is that vaunted courage as you struggle beneath the hammer you once held in countless battles? Shall Loki at long last have the final laugh? Love it. I love it. And he does find the strength, and he lifts it with his back, and then he grabs with his hands, so he's technically wielding Mjolnir. And crack-a-doom, we have the Thunder Frog. He takes the form of Thor, but he's still a frog. Is it ridiculous? Yes, it is. I love it. I love it. I understand, though, why some people did not love it. And so the rats all scurry away. He leaps into the chariot. He takes off for Asgard. That drunk is back. He sees this and he's like, that's it. I'm giving it up for good this time. That is it. Classic old trope. We're getting classic fairy tales. We're getting classic tropes. Next, what do you call a 6'6" fighting mad bullfrog? That's going to be fun. So, next one, we're going to sort of wrap up, I should say, the Thunder Frog saga, but we're also going to advance the All Thing. And we're going to see how Loki's plans and that spell that he cast on the fake Mjolnir, we're going to see how that all plays out. It's good stuff. And once, I think, after Thor 366, I can get back and I could do the final issue of Balder the Brave, because I think that way the little spoiler at the end of the 4th issue of Balder, will have already been revealed in Thor, which is how I would prefer to do it. So, folks, let me know what you think in the comments of The Mighty Thor, number 365, the whole Thunder Frog thing. I enjoyed it. I know other people don't, and I totally respect that. It doesn't bother me one little bit that people don't like this. It was silly. But I think, they still advanced the storyline with the All Thing and Loki's plans. But I think it was a nice respite from some heavier issues of Thor, the whole jaunt into hell, his horrible, grievous wounds, etc. And I think that's one of the reasons they did it. But anyhow, let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this, please give it a like, maybe subscribe, maybe share with a friend. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. Read some Thor. And I will see you hopefully again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.